them toxic as if her fans, because KTV is a Caitlin Clark fan. She's my favorite basketball player to watch, male or female. Point blank, period. Now she's calling us toxic for saying the obvious about the sabotage that was going on in this league and how this woman has been targeted since before she even stepped foot in it, all while Stephanie White wants to ignore the facts of what the other players in this league have done, from disrespecting fans, starting fake.
Brace yourself, because Stephanie White just dropped a bomb that's absolutely tearing the WNBA apart right now. And I mean, this thing is causing shockwaves at every level of the organization. She didn't mince words, didn't soften the blow, didn't try to hide behind political correctness. She flat out called fans toxic. And let me tell you, everyone immediately connected those dots, drawing a straight line to Caitlin Clark's massive, devoted, incredibly passionate following. Social media went absolutely nuclear in response, and I'm talking complete meltdown across every platform you can think of. Fans and commentators erupted with fury, filling timelines with outrage and disbelief. This wasn't some accidental phrase that just slipped out during an interview. It felt intentional, pointed, and fully aware of exactly what kind of reaction it would trigger. The fallout was immediate and intent. Now, there's a growing chorus demanding White be fired from her Indiana Fever coaching position, and that pressure keeps building with each passing day, getting louder and more organized. The league's scrambling to figure out how a coach managed to turn on the exact people driving its explosive growth and smashing viewership records left and right. Fans aren't holding back either. Not even a little bit. They see this as a direct assault on the community that's pushed women's basketball into the cultural conversation like never before, making it relevant in ways it's never been. This controversy is ripping through every level of professional women's hoops, sparking heated arguments, think pieces, social media battles, and backlash that absolutely refuses to die down. White's words have ignited a wildfire that's forcing the league to answer some tough questions about its values, how it treats its supporters, what kind of relationships it's building with fans, and what kind of image it's projecting to the world at large.
Or the facts of what the other players in this league have done, from disrespecting fans, starting fake racial investigations, going on platform. Like, I'm going to give you the facts that Stephanie White wanted to leave out. This is nasty work. Welcome to Keep the Vision. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share the channel, hit that bell notification, and hype the video. Let's get right into things on a Sunday. Let's get into it. So we had this article here. Obviously, Stephanie White was recently on Sue Bird's podcast where she...
And here's the thing, and this is really important to understand. This isn't some random outburst that came out of nowhere without context. This has been brewing for a long time, simmering beneath the surface like a volcano ready to blow. Stephanie White spent months subtly diminishing Caitlin Clark's massive influence on both the team and the entire league, consistently downplaying her impact in ways that couldn't be ignored. She kept pushing this narrative that Kelsey Mitchell was a Fever's top dog, their real star, completely contradicting what everyone could plainly see happening right in front of their eyes. Clark's presence has completely reshaped the Fever's identity from top to bottom and sent league viewership to the roof, breaking records left and right, shattering expectations at every turn. Word from people close to the situation, those with inside knowledge of what's really going on behind closed doors, is that White was basically forced, almost backed into a corner, to finally admit Clark's importance to the organization. But when she did eventually acknowledge it, it felt hollow, empty, like checking a box or trying to save face rather than actually meaning it or believing what she was saying. This underlying tension had been quietly festering for months, building up steam with pressure steadily rising beneath the surface like a pot about to boil over. Her recent reckless comments attacking Clark's fan base were the match that lit the fuse, the catalyst that made everything explode into public view. What could have been handled quietly behind closed doors, resolved through professional communication and internal discussions, has now blown up into a full-scale disaster, revealing long-standing resentment, bias, and poor decision-making at multiple levels. Now, the league, the organization, and the fan base are all dealing with the aftermath of this mess, trying to pick up the pieces. And this blow-up has exposed conflicts that were lurking much longer than anyone wanted to admit or talk about openly.
Beckers did too, but they don't need to be a part of the Caitlin Clark conversation. Caitlin Clark is the reason for the boom in the WNBA, point blank, period. It's not because of no Angel Reese. It's not because of no Paige Beckers. They were some of the lowest. They had some of the lowest attendance for their games throughout the entire season. So I don't know why they keep trying to lump them in with Caitlin Clark, but whatever. It's hard to imagine the WNBA players would get vastly increased salaries they're going to receive as part of a ratified CBA, or at least their salaries wouldn't have increased to the same degree. Now, we know they wouldn't be asking for all the.
So, where did this whole mess actually start? And what's the timeline we're looking at here? Based on a transcript and reports from multiple sources, Stephanie White made these comments during her guest spot on the Swerve's I View podcast, which has a pretty significant following in the basketball community and reaches a wide audience. She was supposedly talking about the WNBA's incredible growth, the same explosion in popularity we keep referencing and analyzing. And she said, and I quote, "I'd like to change the toxicity around our league." Now, at face value, that sounds perfectly fine, reasonable, even though who wouldn't want less negativity in the sport? Who could argue against making the environment better? But here's where it gets complicated and the meaning starts to shift. When you look at her full remarks in context and see how fast fans turned on her, the meaning shifts dramatically, taking on a whole different tone. Sharp-eyed supporters instantly read between the lines, picking up on the subtext and what wasn't being said explicitly, seeing it as a veiled shot that conveniently sidestepped real problems within the league and questionable behavior from certain players that's been documented and discussed extensively. Instead of confronting those internal issues head-on, addressing the elephant in the room, White seemed to point fingers squarely at the league's most passionate, outspoken fans, the people who were just voicing their thoughts and hyping up their favorite athletes with genuine enthusiasm. The response came hard and fast from all corners of the basketball world. What could have been brushed off as an offhand remark became a magnet for outrage, pulling in criticism from every direction, exposing both her tin ear for fan sentiment and the simmering friction between lead brass and its most dedicated audience who invested time, money, and emotional energy into supporting the sport.
Now, you are ignoring the things that the players have done. These players have gone on. Arike Agumbawale was on ESPN during Caitlin Clark's rookie year, calling out fans saying, "We don't want you." We had people like Ryan Howard go at a post-game podium and disrespect A'ja Wilson fans because they showed up and cheered for A'ja Wilson at an Atlanta Dream game that was a home game for the Atlanta Dream. And she gets mad that people are cheering for A'ja Wilson at an Atlanta Dream game. So now hard-earned, hard-working.
The double standard here is pointed out by tons of observers and fans across social media platforms and sports commentary shows is absolutely mind-blowing when you really examine it. Stephanie White went hard criticizing these so-called toxic fans, putting major energy into calling them out publicly, but completely ignored a whole catalog of player actions that have stirred up drama and bad blood in the league for years. We're not talking minor squabbles or behind-the-scenes gossip that stays in the locker room. These are very public episodes that played out for everyone to see. Players have openly shown disrespect to fans who paid good money to support them, made wild accusations about fabricated racial investigations that turned out to have no basis in reality, and launched into public feuds and Twitter wars that dominated headlines and social media feeds. All out in the open for everyone to see and dissect, analyze, and form opinions about. These headline-grabbing incidents have absolutely added fuel to an already heated and often hostile environment around the league, making things worse instead of better. Yet, White has consistently stayed silent on these matters, never calling out or condemning these behaviors from players, which raises serious doubts about her intentions, her priorities, and what she's really trying to accomplish with her statements. The inconsistency is glaring and impossible to miss for anyone paying attention. Fans' emotional investment gets labeled toxic and picked apart under a microscope, while the actual troublemakers within the league, the ones causing documented problems, get a free pack. This creates a glaring contradiction that no honest observer can miss or explain a way to go.
To go to a basketball game can't cheer for who they want to cheer for. So She's mad that she was disrespecting fans for cheering for Asia Wilson, but in the same breath, we had Kalia Copper of the Phoenix Mercury get mad and call out fans for booing DeWanna Bonner, who left the Indiana Fever, who was on the opposing Phoenix Mercury team when they went to play in Indiana. So fans can't cheer for an Asia Wilson on a road game, but they also can't boo in opposing player coming.
This brings up a crucial question that needs to be addressed, Eden. What have fans really done that's so terrible? And what's actually in their control to change? Let's rewind before Caitlin Clark even played her first WNBA game back, when she was still dominating in college basketball. Back then, the league was already drowning in politics, drama, and visible frustration that was spilling out into public view constantly. Players like Angel Reese were openly talking about and hyping up the idea of jumping to rival leagues, specifically the much-discussed Unrivaled League that was positioning itself as an alternative. That was a pretty clear dig at the WNBA setup, and what players saw as major flaws in how things ran from compensation to working conditions. Shortly after that, Sada Sabali went public with bold demands, calling out, "Pay us what you owe us," and even rocking protest shirts at the All-Star break to hammer home her message and make sure everyone understood the depth of player frustration. These weren't small grievances or minor complaints that could be easily fixed. They were loud public signs of deep problems within the league and its player base, systemic issues that have been building for years. Importantly, and this is the key part people need to understand, all this chaos was already happening long before fans, especially those championed by Caitlin Clark, started voicing their frustrations or concerns about what they were seeing. Given all that context in the timeline of events, pointing the finger at fans as the main villains isn't just wrong, it's a massive distortion of reality that ignores documented facts. The truth is, the league's own internal battles, ongoing complaint from players, and player-driven protests are what's really stoking the fire and creating the toxic environment, not the passionate supporters rallying behind breakout stars like Clark who are just trying to enjoy the game.
Wilson on a road game, but they also can't boo in opposing player coming into their arena. What can fans do? We've seen all types of fans be called racist. Black fans of Caitlin Clark, like myself, be called the raccoons, all types of stuff. These people come at the fans all the time. The players. You never address the things that these players have done to contribute to any negativity around the league. You never do that. It took Nafisa Collier.
Let's be real and cut through all the noise here. The WNBA's recent explosion in popularity is overwhelmingly and undeniably because of Caitlin Clark, and there's just no argument to be made otherwise. Her arrival has skyrocketed viewership numbers to levels nobody predicted, packed arenas that used to have empty seats, and sparked mainstream interest in the league from people who never watched women's basketball before. But despite this obvious truth that's backed up by hard data and ratings numbers, there's a constant effort to water down her influence and spread credit around in ways that don't match reality. How does this happen? By vaguely lumping in other players like Angel Reese and Paige Beckers, suggesting they're equally responsible for the boom, even though their teams consistently sit at the bottom in both attendance and TV ratings when you actually look at the numbers. This intentional minimizing of Clark's game-changing effect, all while the league cashes in on her star power to move tickets and boost numbers across the board, has become a huge sore spot for fans who can see what's really happening. Supporters are watching absolutely baffled as her contributions get brushed aside, while others seem to ride her coattails without putting in the work or generating anywhere near the same level of interest. The irony in all this, it's precisely this refusal to acknowledge Clark's undeniable impact that creates the very toxicity Stephanie White now publicly blasts, exposing a serious gap between what's claimed by league officials and what's actually driving the league's success in measurable, concrete ways.
The organization, there's been organizations such as the Indiana Fever who lied and hid injuries about Caitlin Clark the whole time, all while using her to sell tickets and saying she's game to game and day to day for months at a time. You don't think that contributed? See, you guys want to make this just about the fans, and I've watched all of these players go out and disrespect fans, go out and disrespect fans, all while trying to use the money and the fandom that Caitlin Clark has brought in to capitalize and to make money off of.
So, what are we really talking about here when we dig into the details? Now, let's talk about the money, the financial side of this equation, because the financial side of this is impossible to overlook, and it tells a huge part of the story. The WNBA's historic boom in popularity, almost single-handedly driven by Caitlin Clark and the massive audience she's brought with her, is directly responsible for the huge salary bumps players are about to get under the new collective bargaining agreement that's being negotiated. Let's be absolutely clear about something important. Without her influence, without the viewership spike and revenue increase she's generated, these significant pay increases might never have reached this level, or maybe wouldn't have happened at all, or would have been delayed for years. Yet, plenty of people inside the league, both players and coaches who are benefiting financially from this boom, seem reluctant, even resistant to give her full credit for what she's accomplished. This creates a weird tension, an awkward dynamic between those cashing in financially from the growth and the actual engine behind that growth. The energized fan base Clark brought in, the people buying tickets and merchandise, and tuning into game. These are the people whose enthusiasm, dedication, and spending power are what's making this financial windfall possible for everyone involved. For league figures to then turn around and criticize, or worse, openly attack these exact fans who are driving revenue isn't just foolish from a business standpoint. It's borderline insulting and shows a fundamental misunderstanding of how professional sports actually work. It completely ignores the simple fact that Clark's arrival is powering both the league's cultural momentum, its place in the national conversation, and its bottom line, the actual dollars and cents that pay everyone's salaries.
Fans are making this no. We are calling it like we see it. It's that simple. If you want to call out the toxicity, call out everything around the board. Call out the people that started fake racial investigate. Call out all of it. Call out all of it. Don't just try to make it about Caitlin Clark fans. And this is why I believe Stephanie White needs to be fired. And I stand on that. Get down in the comments. Let me know what you think. This is Keep the Vision.
The backlash got significantly worse when fans started highlighting obvious examples of player disrespect that Stephanie White completely turned a blind eye to, refusing to address or acknowledge. Take Raquel Williams from the Las Vegas Aces as a perfect example of what fans are talking about. During Clark's rookie year, when she was just starting her professional career, Williams went on ESPN, a major national platform, and straight up said, "We don't want you," directed at the new fans flooding in. That wasn't vague or coded language that could be interpreted different ways. It was a clear hostile shot aimed directly at the new wave of fans flooding in because of Clark, people who were excited about women's basketball for the first time. That kind of open hostility toward enthusiastic supporters is exactly the toxicity White claimed she wanted to stamp out and eliminate from the league. Yet, she said nothing about it, stayed completely silent, didn't issue any statements or criticism. Fans caught on to the hypocrisy immediately, and they weren't shy about calling it out. While players openly trashed newcomers and made them feel unwelcome, White aimed her criticism exclusively at fans who just wanted to enjoy the game and root for their favorite stars without being attacked. The inconsistency was impossible to miss for anyone paying attention. Renee Montgomery from the Atlanta Dream also publicly blasted Ians for daring to show support during a home game, criticizing them for their enthusiasm. Basically paying fans who bought tickets and traveled to the game were being told they couldn't cheer for the players they came specifically to see, which is absurd when you think about it. These situations make it crystal clear that the league's real problem isn't fan conduct or how supporters are behaving. It's the total lack of consequences for players and coaches whose actions often create the exact negativity White publicly denounced. The very toxicity she claims to oppose. This wasn't just a one-time mistake or a slip-up that could be explained away easily. It was a bold, shocking example of what a lot of people see as pure player entitlement and total disregard for the paying customers who are literally the foundation of professional sports, the ones whose money keeps the whole operation running. This kind of attitude from athletes creates a hostile, unwelcoming vibe that threatens to push away the very audience keeping the league alive financially and culturally, generating the buzz and revenue everyone depends on. Yet, what's stunning and honestly hard to comprehend is the deafening silence from league leadership, especially White, who stays remarkably quiet about these specific player incidents that are documented and undeniable. Instead, she's quick to jump on fan reactions, criticizing them immediately, setting up a double standard that just fuels more division and bitterness instead of tackling the real root problems that are causing friction. This contradiction gets even more glaring when you look at Keelan Brown from the Phoenix Mercury and what happened during a game in Indianapolis when Kelsey Mitchell, formerly with the Indiana Fever, came back to Indianapolis with her new squad. Making her return to her old home court, she got the typical mix of cheers and boos you'd expect in sports. The normal fan respond. Fans showing their passion, rivalry, and loyalty, which is what makes sports exciting and creates atmosphere. But Brown publicly called out fans for this totally normal, age-old sports tradition that happens in every professional league around the world. Her criticism of supporters for booing a former player isn't just misguided and out of touch. It shows a troubling sense of entitlement about how fans should be allowed to express themselves. What are fans supposed to do exactly? Only cheer for their own team, only applaud players they personally like, and stay totally silent when they don't. This kind of policing where fans are lectured on how to behave and told they're wrong for normal sport behavior just breeds more friction, resentment, and fractures in the league's community, driving wedges between players and the people who support them. This goes way beyond just isolated clashes between players and fans that can be written off as one-off incidents. The situation is darker and runs much deeper than surface-level disagreements. Black fans who support Caitlin Clark, including content creators who had the guts to call out White's remarks and push back against the narrative, have been hit with disgusting racialized attacks that cross every line. Some have been called raccoons, a deeply offensive racial slur by members of the league's own community. People who claim to care about inclusion. This targeted harassment rooted in racial hatred and designed to intimidate and silence exposes a disturbing undercurrent of toxicity that's frequently overlooked or downplayed by league officials like White, who claim to care about creating a positive environment. It's a troubling reality that can't be ignored. Fans who are simply cheering for a player they admire are being met with racist slurs from within the very community that claims to stand for diversity and inclusion. The same community that puts out statements about social justice. The narrative being pushed by the league and certain players is that fans are the problem, that their reactions, their passion, and their critiques are toxic and need to be shut down. Fans have raised legitimate concerns about officiating inconsistencies, inconsistent standards in how games are called, and the unequal treatment of marquee players compared to others. Blaming those fans for reacting, labeling them toxic for voicing concerns, is a blatant attempt to dodge accountability for the league and its players' own misconduct and problems. On top of that, making the situation even worse, the Indiana Fever organization, under White's leadership, engaged in shady practices around Caitlin Clark's health that should concern everyone. Reports surfaced from multiple sources that the team lied about her injuries, deliberately hid her actual medical status from the public and possibly from Clark herself, and kept pushing her onto the floor despite obvious signs she was hurt and needed rest. This cover-up, clearly designed to maximize ticket revenue and keep up a competitive front for playoff positioning, betrayed her trust and left fans feeling deceived and furious about how their favorite player was being treated. The conflicting injury updates, total lack of transparency from the organization, and clear prioritization of money over players' safety and long-term health are problems that stretch way beyond basketball into basic ethical concerns about how athletes are treated. The surge in popularity has opened up fresh chances for the league to broaden its audience beyond traditional demographics, boost viewership to unprecedented levels, and improve player compensation through collective bargaining negotiations that benefit everyone. But this boom is delicate and can't be taken for granted or treated carelessly. It relies on a healthy, respectful relationship between players, teams, and fans. A three-way connection that has to be nurtured. Instead of nurturing that relationship and building on the momentum, league leadership, particularly Stephanie White, has decided to scapegoat fans for the league's problems, making them the villains rather than confronting the systemic dysfunction within the organization itself. This approach of blaming fans is dangerously short-sighted and self-defeating in ways that should be obvious to anyone in leadership. It ignores a fundamental truth that fans are the lifeblood of any sport. The people who buy tickets, grab merchandise, stream games, and create the hype that powers the league's momentum and keeps it in the public eye. When White publicly attacks fan reactions, labeling them toxic, she's eroding that essential bond, damaging the relationship that everything else is built on. It's a risky move that could easily push away the passionate community that's helped breathe new life into women's basketball and raise its profile nationwide to levels never seen before. The fundamental issue here is accountability and who's being held responsible for what. If the league genuinely wants to tackle toxicity, whether it shows up as rowdy fan behavior, disrespectful player conduct, or organizational failures at the management level, it needs to address it at every level consistently, not pick and choose. That means holding players responsible for launching bogus racial investigations that turn out to be false, disrespecting paying customers who support the league financially, trashing former teammates publicly in ways that damage team culture, or insulting new audiences and key demographics that the league desperately needs to grow. This cherry-picked outrage, where only fans are criticized, just deepens the divide, stokes more resentment on all sides, and stunts the league's potential for growth. Instead, leadership needs to own up to its mistakes, acknowledge where they've fallen short, and build a culture rooted in inclusion, respect, and real accountability across the board, applying the same standards to everyone. Women's professional basketball is standing at a pivotal moment right now, a crossroads that will determine its future trajectory. The league is riding an exciting wave of growth unprecedented in its history, but it's also wrestling with serious internal conflict and deep rifts that threaten to tear apart what's been built. The online conversation around players like Caitlin Clark and Angel Rhea has gotten increasingly ugly, spiraling into tribalism, personal insults, and racialized slurs that poison the atmosphere. Rather than bringing people together, rather than uniting the community around shared love of the game, White's strategy of blaming fans and dismissing legitimate criticism just pours gasoline on the fire, making everything worse. This approach risks turning a golden opportunity, a once-in-a-generation chance for growth, into a full-blown crisis of trust and community that could set the league back years. The future of women's basketball hinges on leadership that prioritizes transparency, being honest with fans about what's happening, inclusivity that welcomes all supporters regardless of who they cheer for, and real community connection built on mutual respect. Only then can the league truly flourish and live up to its potential to inspire the next generation of fans and players who will carry the sport forward.